Hello. Climate change has already had a big impact on most aspects of our social and economic systems. But a group that is mostly ignored are farmers of the world. Farmers of the world, especially those living in poorest countries, are facing unpredictable weather, which is a threat to their very survival. As the IPCC report says as well, droughts, storms, heat waves, rising sea levels, and changing ecosystems are going to result in destroyed crops, failed harvests, and animal deaths. As much as a third of the world's food supply comes from small-scale rural farmers in low-income countries. Yet they receive less than 2% of the global funding for climate adaptation. Ladies and gentlemen, the threat they face is a threat that we all face. Adaptation means increasing the ability of people, of communities, and of nations to absorb the impacts of climate change, climate vulnerability, and climate uncertainty, and be able to bounce back from shocks that are caused by climate change. If adaptation does not increase, if our adaptive capacity does not increase, yields of crops will drop by up to a quarter by the end of the century. And this, unfortunately, will lead to even more hunger and poverty, increased conflict, migration, and global instability. Actions and investments must be led by countries and at the local level as well. At IFAD, we believe that there are 4 commitments that global leaders need to make to enhance the ability of countries to take this forward. First, financing for adaptation needs to increase. Adaptation costs in developing countries are estimated to be $70 billion per year, a figure that is likely to double by 2030. Yet, for every $18 that is raised for mitigation, just $1 is raised for adaptation. This needs to change urgently. Doing this, increasing the overall financing for adaptation, makes good economic sense as well. It has been estimated that if $1.8 trillion are invested in well-planned adaptation activities, it will increase and create $7.1 trillion in avoided costs, as well as social benefits and environmental benefits. For those that are doing the math, this is a return of nearly 400% on our investment. Second, leaders need to commit to policy reform that creates incentives for climate-resilient investments that also produce low emissions. This means using public regulations to nudge consumers to choose food that is sustainably produced. It also means pricing food to recognize the full cost of production, including the cost of climate adaptation and environmental protection. Policies that are aimed at strengthening economic growth can also support low-emission transitions and encourage investments in climate resilience, for example, through incentives for renewable energy technologies. Third, IFAD is saying that there must be an increase in investments in infrastructure that can guarantee clean water, energy, and green energy-efficient transport, as well as those that are helpful in increasing our flood defenses. There are multiple benefits for smallholders from creating solar-powered irrigation infrastructure, for example, and solarizing engines in place of diesel, which can help to reduce costs and reduce the fragmentation of fuel supply. And finally, capacity building for low-emission, climate-resilient transitions is critical. This is the only way we can innovate and generate quick and relevant climate transitions as well as information. Indeed, IFAD is pivoting towards building such policy and advisory services in its country-level work. IFAD has committed to dedicating half of its climate finance budget to adaptation. Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the world's best chance to make a difference in the fight against climate change. It is time to take action. Thank you.